Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of In the Eyes of Truth. Back with us is Thomas Penn. He's been on here quite a few times on the show. He is a former U.S. Army NCO, a journalist, and is located in the most dysfunctional country in Europe, the heart
Yes.
attack engine of the Euro economy, the mental delinquency of the so-called brain trust of Europe. No, not Brussels. Germany, Berlin.
Uh, that's a good intro.
Welcome back, Tom.
Thanks for having me, Stas. That's a great intro. Uh,
How's the land of the insane and the inane? Uh,
uh,
Pushing for war, I see every day.
yeah, it's cold here now, and nothing's changed. Same old, same old. Um, they're pretty much batshit crazy, insane as they've always been. And I think we saw the this kind of peace proposal that came out today from Washington, or
Yeah,
from
the
Witkoff at
peace
least.
joke that came out of
Uh,
from Washington. Yeah.
and the Germans were quite pissed about that. They're So I mean, I don't really take it seriously, the proposal itself, but the Germans were all up in arms again over um just the mention of it. People like Kiesewetter, these guys that are really hardcore and have been pushing for Germany to do more. Um, Things like Taurus, that's always been a topic of discussion here. But um, yeah, they're pretty insane in Germany for a
Well,
country that really has no ability to affect the outcome at all. Like I mentioned to you before on your program, they talk like it's 1939 over here, and it's just ridiculous. It's really absurd.
we had a post by a certain Jürgen Naudet, who's I guess president of a small language company that has branches all over Europe, as a matter of fact, and not only in Latin America too. And he said, and I'll post this up right now on there, but we'll go ahead and read it. The Russians had their chance. They didn't take it. We must finally stop asking why Russians are such monsters. We simply must wipe them out. Gee, 1939. Let's do some genocide. I guess what is it? DNA in Western Germans
Yeah, I
that
think
that never got denazified, obviously.
not that he's part of the German elite, but I mean the Anglo-Saxon elite. I think it's pretty ingrained in their psyche that they are somehow superior to Slavic peoples, not just Russians, but Slavic people in general. And yeah, it predates even World War II. But the idea is, that basically that the Slavs are subhumans and they have this, you know, physical and moral, intellectual superiority, and it's just, especially in this day and age, it's really unbelievable. It's unbelievable that that guy could write something like that. Like we discussed earlier, living in Germany. Germany's not even a player. It's not even relevant to anything, to any outcome. It has nothing to say. It has a military that couldn't defend the Berlin. There's no nuclear weapons to speak of, and yet they go on and on and on and on and on and on and on. And
Well, here's my
that's
question.
part of that arrogance. That yeah, go ahead, ask.
Yeah. Okay. So Eastern Germany is actually a mix of Germans and Slavs because the Sorbs used to own all of Eastern Germany, including Berlin. And they used to do raids up and down on the Norse while we were at it because they used to own the entire Eastern German coast. So we got that to begin with. And then the Germans didn't exactly do their greatest in World War One. They got wiped out in World War Two. Frederick the Great got wiped out. The only thing that saved them was Catherine the Great's death. Russia took Berlin three times in 300 years, and they still feel superior.
Yeah, I
What
think
is this
generally you
based
have.
on?
Oh, it's just based on it's something that's ingrained in German culture. It's not so much in Eastern in the former GDR. They have a lot of experience with the Russians, as you well know, and your viewers know. More of it comes from, I think, the very elites, um, and it's if you see this kind of uh, obscene kind of rhetoric. Most of it comes from West Germans. Um, You don't see much of it come out of East Germany. Um, but yeah, it's interesting that after, suffering those defeats, especially in the First and the Second World War, um, that's the certain individuals they feel, okay speaking like that in public. Um, and there's very little attempt in Germany to address really. I mean, there's no people like myself, basically, and there are others, within the German, political landscape that have, try to really address the causes of the conflict in Ukraine and bring it to the forefront. But it's really uh, it's kind of a fruitless, effort, endeavor because it just
That's
doesn't get
sad
through
if
to them.
that's true.
Really, I think that the only thing that would make the German political class really, awaken is some type of, direct military engagement at the end of the day. I say you do have certain people here who understand the seriousness of the situation, but their voices are not, they don't get much projection. Um,
That's
and
sad.
yeah, this talk about rebuilding the Bundeswehr and
Well, this seems to be going more
uh,
than talk. They're planning on starting the draft like end of this
yeah,
year.
right. And we talked about like a few times ago
Hmm.
when I was on with you. A lot of that stuff they've removed the debt brake. Now they're going to print a lot of money in this country, nearly
Trillion euro.
a trillion euro. And I said you can print all the money you want, and you can start to construct equipment, manufacture it, but you can't print the fighting spirit. You just can't print that. And a wholesome, productive society, that's something that evolves out of that, and we just don't
Yeah.
have that here. And the typical German male, I mean, I mean, it's kind of, I don't know what is an example. How you could walk out in the street and hit him in the face, and he'd stand there and just, And in the United States, that's something there's just no spirit here. There's no, it just doesn't exist in this society. It's been kind of pacified out of them, despite all their tough talk and the rhetoric. It's just not that kind of society anymore.
That's sad to say. Well, maybe sad to say. But maybe, if they weren't that kind of society, they wouldn't be so. Well, you know, there is something to be, sorry, there is something to be afraid of, though. People that will tolerate their women being raped, their children being raped, getting slapped in the face, when finally given an outlet to go murder as a revenge, they become extremely satanic in their approach. So that maybe is what they're trying to get for.
You would
This,
think so. I mean, but the idea that Germany will reach a tipping point, I think we're far, far from that.
yeah,
There hasn't been enough hardship here, and people haven't experienced the kind of the circumstances. For example, prior to 1939, the circumstances, the economic circumstances, and the hardships that led to the rise of Nazism
hmm
in the country during Weimar, and then the 1933 to the 38, 39 period. But we haven't had that kind of economic hardship here. People haven't had it, um, like
And
that. So,
well, that
and
they may be coming. That
uh,
actually may be coming.
it very well may come because I don't think there's really much way out for the Germans, Western Europe in general. The United States is a bit in a better position, but the Western Europeans are in big trouble. France, Germany, you see it every day: shootings, murders, stabbings, stuff you
Incredible.
didn't see
Yeah,
years ago.
yeah.
So many of our companies here being plundered, or not plundered, but economically just ruined. Um, and you've seen, especially since COVID, this kind of spate of just German arrogance to think that you can eliminate your biggest energy supplier, and that supplies all of your manufacturing, and that you can then somehow replace that within a quick period of time, and then a transition is just there's nothing to transition to, and it's really a sad state of affairs here because this country does have um, it does have potential, but it's just not. It's not, and that's not unleashed. These people are overburdened and overtaxed, and um, there's a lot of discussion now amongst young people about the pension system, and it's kind of the young people are blaming the boomers for
I think
for
it's
the
worldwide.
situation
That's not Germany only. That
uh,
U.S. is even worse than that.
but it's really particular to the pension system. Had the discussion of late. You know, you can find it on X and other places. In particular X, where the young people are really fed up. They don't want to, so much of the income is consumed by the state.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
And they don't, they see their industries collapsing, and they asking themselves, what future do we have here? And I think their concerns are justified. They don't have much of a future in this country. I wanted to say if things don't change, but I don't see them changing. So at least anytime soon. And I
Well, how
think
could they
the
change? I mean, what could they change
uh,
to?
nothing. I think the end game is, this system has to play itself out and run itself, run the country totally into the ground. And after that, and only after that, can something, new, um, I guess kind of rise out of the ashes, if you want to put it that way. But that's what it's going to take. I just don't see any major changes. But to change things like the pension system, and to take benefits away, you're gonna, these mainstream political parties are going to lose. Entire voter blocks if they attempt to do something like that. I don't see anything happening here on those fronts that's going to change anything going forward. At least within I think we're a dying society here in Western Europe. We're dying societies, and that's the fact of the matter. We have to
You think
fall down completely.
they may do something radical because they are a dying society? Um, A, B. Do you think alternative for Germany is going to come to power or be allowed to come to power? Um,
How do you mean radical? What do you mean by that? In
well,
terms of
societies that are they feel they're dying, sometimes they do take radical measures. They actually go to war. That makes absolutely no sense, or turn it on themselves.
And I mean, that's what I was talking about earlier. They just don't have the ability to really to do that. They don't have the ability to project power. It's not, 19, the power balance in the world's totally shifted. They don't have the power. They don't have the military. They don't have the nuclear, stop. They don't have any nuclear weapons to speak of, whatsoever. So from that perspective, I don't really see. They can try to dig down deep and rebuild their economy, but that's going to take kind of, political will and the forging of, relationships that they're just not politically ready to, engage in.
Well, here's a question. Have you been paying attention to what the U.S. Congress is, the new sanctions, the super duper sanctions
I
against Russia
have,
that they're about to pass? That Trump's all, you know, wiggly thrilled and got a boner about.
yeah,
Uh,
I've been,
yeah, the 500% on any dealings with Russia.
right,
Now,
yeah,
considering Germany's still importing Russian, not just energy products, but they're still importing Russian fertilizers. They're still importing Russian wheat, even if it goes through Turkey. How ready are they for these kinds of shocks, food shocks? I mean, serious food shocks for all of Europe. And not to mention, I'm sure they won't turn away from the dollar. Most countries, I think, will turn away from the dollar instantly because it's survival. Now, it's, take a bullet in the head for Uncle Sam or tell him to go pound sand. But the Europeans,
yeah. I mean, the Germans, the French have put up a little bit of resistance to those things, but the Germans generally know. I just don't see it. They look what's happened here so far. I mean, over the past, just exclude, COVID, and take the start of the, special military operation. Since that time, um, we've had, I don't even know how many companies. I'd have to go back and research, I mean, but I just have it in, from every day working in it. The number of companies that have been just obliterated here. Um, our gas supply, energy supply destroyed. No one cares about it. Um, There's just so many. Yeah, the whole political, the social systems are starting to break down. Our industry is collapsing, breaking down, and nobody is really up in arms, over it.
Seriously, nobody. What about the people losing the jobs? What about the secondary job loss from the businesses that support the people that were making money in these companies?
You're talking about major companies like Volkswagen and
Yeah,
ThyssenKrupp, and there's so many other manufacturers in this country that Volkswagen just shut down a big part of their operation in Wolfsburg. There was that chip issue. They
yeah.
couldn't get chips, so they've made themselves so dependent on. Well, Germany, as you know, has no natural resources really of its own to speak of. So, I mean, it's really always it's so dependent on other nations for commodities, those raw materials, and they've totally blown whatever stock they had built up. They've totally. You saw the German Foreign Minister Waterful. He went to China, and they basically turned him away. They said,
I thought he didn't even go to
you know,
China, and then they just say we don't have time
um,
for you.
right. They literally told him, we don't have time for you. So
That's a.
and
I mean, that's not even a smack. That's a spit in
no,
the eye. Go
right.
sit
And
down in the corner.
yeah, and I think that's the arrogance. This arrogance that's built up. It's kind of built up inside this bubble over these last decades. And when reality hits, as it hits, is hitting now hard, um, they just don't know what to do. They there's a lot of that tough rhetoric, and that's really all they have at the end of the day. And for me to watch it, it's pretty hard to watch because my ex-wife is from here, my kids were born here. It is a hard thing to watch. I worry about my kids' futures. My oldest son, he already left for the United States, and he doesn't want to be here anymore.
Tell them to go to Russia.
Um,
We have lots of Germans moving to Russia, so
uh,
you'd have good
I
company.
have to I have to convince him to go over there. Yeah, I'll be going myself soon. But aside from that, I just don't see that the this country is in seriously bad shape, and nobody has the. It's like everybody's been, kind of like castrated. The men, they just don't have the gumption. Even if the AFD comes to power, I mean, they're going to be confronted with, it's like taking over the Titanic after the ship's
After
already hit the iceberg.
the,
And
yeah.
so, I mean, they do have some decent candidates. They have some good minds in that party, but I don't think the ship is salvageable at this point. It would require so much effort, so much restructuring. Mm. And I think by the time they could even, begin to do it, get something, pushed through. So take the pension system, for example, they're going to lose a big, once people really start to feel the pain, because you can't just expect them to come to power and then all of a sudden, snap your fingers and everything's better. The country's gonna have to endure some serious pain in order to right all the wrongs and fix all the messes that were created, the past decades. And you can't just do that, without any pain. It's gonna take serious pain. And I don't think the society has the wherewithal for that. And
Okay.
what comes after that, yeah, I
So
don't
let's
know.
say they can't fix it, but they do come to power. Of-
Right.
Uh, okay. First of all, Merz is now talking that he's agreeing with AFD that they need to deport 1.4 million Syrians. Which there's a lot more problems than just Syrians. There's Albanians, there's other Arabs, uh, Pakistanis, all the usual subjects, Afghanis. But
Yeah.
say they go after the Syrians, 1.4 million Syrians. How would that look? Is that even possible? And when you say the system would have to collapse, what would the collapse look like? Redivision of Germany into subordinate, formerly independent parts, chaos in the streets, dogs and cats sleeping together, cannibalism. I mean, what would a civil war? I mean, but in all seriousness, you've got
Yeah.
massive Islamic armies inside the country, well-armed Islamic armies inside the country.
And I think one of the biggest problems is that they brought so many people here under these inorganic false pretenses. So back in the United States, say 150, 200 years ago, people came to the United States for, the economic opportunity, the freedom, the religious freedom, the economic freedom that the country offered. There were no safety nets. You went there and you had the freedom, but you also had the responsibility to deal with that freedom. So if you failed to swim and you sank, then it was on you. But the opportunities were there. And in this country, they've lured so many people to this country under these false pretenses. They brought them here luring them with, free handouts, the social benefits that is so or were at least so generous. Um, and they brought these people here in the hopes that they could, lure them with the money, cheap stuff, the social benefits, and then flip it and get them back into the labor force somehow. And then those people in turn, you know, become tax-paying citizens and prop up the collapsing, social safety nets like the pension system, the healthcare system.
Okay, just a quick
Um, they,
question on
they,
that. Most of these people are have absolutely no skill sets.
Correct. Yeah, but
What
that's
kind
the way
of job system did they plan on putting them into?
well, they're so short-sighted and they don't think ahead. They don't think about these things. That's if you look at the people like that were in power here in the Green Party, Baerbock, these are stupid people. Stas, they are dumb people. Um, and they run these Ponzi schemes for so long. They just wanted to they're so desperate to try to try to right and correct the situation. And they've completely failed to do that. And what they've done instead is they've created a kind of this, in the United States where we became a melting pot. You here have kind of this kind of balkanized. There's nothing here that holds the people together. There's no common language. There's no common culture. There's no common religion. And all of that works until the free money goes away. And that's what binds it together. And when those systems start to break down, then you have a bunch of people, like I talked about it when it gets really ugly and dirty. You've got these people that they're all going to be at each other's necks because there's nothing that binds them. Um, and that's the biggest problem I see going forward in Germany. Do you hear that beeping sound?
No, no, no beeping
No,
sound.
okay. Yeah, so that's the biggest problem going forward. And we're starting to see it in the major German cities where Um, violent crime, as I talked about earlier, is way up. Stabbings are way up, shootings, terrorist attacks. Like people are afraid to go to the Christmas markets. Some of them are even getting shut down this year. They won't open
Yeah,
at
I
all.
saw that. Jeez, you
Others,
talk
they're
about
uh,
occupied territory. By the way,
right.
that beeping sound may be the German secret police listening in.
I don't know. I think it's my uh, notifications thing here. I don't know what it is, but yeah, maybe it's them. It could be them.
Yeah, I
Uh,
mean, Christmas markets, and I remember I went to these Christmas markets too. I was stationed in Germany. Really nice, very interesting, really nice culturally. I mean, these are part of Germany for the last 1,000 plus years,
yeah,
and
right. They were
poof,
fantastic.
they're
And
gone.
what's been done is just and it's not the fault. I mean, people fall into the trap. I mean, of blaming the foreigners that they. I mean, to an extent, they are to blame, but they were brought here by this political class. They brought them here in the hopes to exploit them and prop them, kind of flip it and turn them, like I said earlier, back into get them into the labor. That was their pipe dream. They get them in the labor market, and they would prop up the collapsing Ponzi scheme, like pension system, things like that, and then that would in turn ensure their voting blocks. Because without that, those guys, those probably the CDU, the SPD, they're screwed. They have if they lose the pensioners, they just there's huge chunks of their voting blocks, and that people vote for them just for that. You have people voting against their own children's interests just to maintain the system because someone, previous government promised them, that this it's something for nothing. It's possible, and I
Wait,
don't
wait, wait.
necessarily blame
That's
them.
the whole West. In the U.S., they're
Yeah,
voting against their children's futures. I mean, the
all
debt
right.
level is that big. They don't. I mean, the boomers, for most part, don't seem to give a damn. Not a lot of them, anyways.
Right, but
How many
like
generations suffer?
yeah, the United States just has a little more staying power, or a lot more staying power than Western Europe. The United States still issue of the world reserve currency. It can still print its own. It can still print the dollar. It can force it on the world. We've seen it now. In places like a lot of people. Ukraine is still the main focus, but I worry sometimes that people, they lose sight of. That this is more of a Russia's has challenged the dollar-based world order,
Yeah.
essentially, and Ukraine, the military aspect of it. I mean, it's going. Russia's progressing there, but on other, this is really a multi-front, effort,
Oh yeah.
um,
Yeah.
and not progressing um, as a on a collective front. So in certain places like Syria was a big loss, clearly, um,
Well, Syria
and
was
then
going to be a loss no matter what because
uh,
Assad betrayed his own backers.
uh,
Uh,
I
I
mean,
mean, let's put the blame where it goes. I mean, he backed away from Russia, he backed away from Iran, he backed away
well,
from China, and things happened that could not have been avoided
uh,
at that
and at the
point.
end of the day, the United States government got exactly what it wanted,
Oh yeah,
Syria,
Islamic
and
jihadists murdering Christians. Yeah, that's what
and
Trump
uh,
likes.
and and places like Venezuela now. I've written about that, talked about it before. I think the United States is going to get what it wants there. If it wasn't a nuclear, um, if it was a nuclear armed nation like the Russian Federation is, the story would look a lot different. Um, but yeah, I think that's something that I like to talk to Russians about, and because I think sometimes the message gets lost. It's a hard fight and one that will take it's not just doesn't just happen overnight. And then Ukraine is really one front, but a success there, which I think is inevitable at this point, is going to be. Um, I just hope Russia holds its ground. It doesn't cut any silly deals with
Oh yeah,
with Washington.
it's
Um,
pointless cutting
I th
any deals with
uh,
Washington. But
uh,
like I said, you've got this bill that looks like Congress is going to pass, and I hope to God they pass it. Oh God, do I hope that they pass it. So every nation's going to have a choice. Cut every business dealing with Russia, including wheat, rice, fertilizers, and Russia is the biggest exporter of wheat in the world. Grows twice as much as the U.S. Not to mention all the other food groups. Russia makes 36% of the world's fertilizer. So you cut that, it severely destroys yields, including in the U.S., which imports, I think, $1.7 billion worth of Russian fertilizer. So it just destroys
so
it's hunger, famine, and war for any nation that stays with the dollar.
yeah, well, I've written about it. I think I even when Trump came to power, or when he was elected in 2020, this past sometimes I lose. I think I have Alzheimer's.
2024.
I forget I have it.
With Trump, it's easy because there's something like
Right.
10 new things he pops out
Uh,
every day, so your brain gets overloaded after a while.
right. It's 2024. Um, let me read you something I wrote, and your audience might, they
Mhm.
find it, amusing or interesting. Um, what I said on election day, I wrote this on um, January 20th, not
Mhm.
election day, on inauguration day. I discussed it, prior to that, but on inauguration day, I wrote, Donald Trump and the Trump family, they've made it clear that they're, the ultimate grifters.
Yep. Yep.
You get two massive crypto pump and dumps running simultaneously on day one.
Yep.
I said, all of this degeneracy is only made possible by the US dollar status as world reserve currency. Trump will do nothing to fix the real problem facing the United States. As he's a prime beneficiary of the dollar status, he will do everything in his power to see to it that Russia is unable to assert its sovereignty and continue challenging the US dollar along with other BRICS members. If Trump does not get Russia on her knees in Ukraine via a deal, he will continue the fight there. If Putin cuts any deals with Trump, it's over for Russia, and that should be clear as day after this grifting scheme of biblical proportions I wrote. Putin's got to stay solid as a rock. Russia can never trust Washington under the current monetary paradigm ever, and any deal they cut now with Washington will destroy them. And
Well, they'll attempt to
I,
destroy us. We're a little harder to
uh,
destroy than
uh,
most people think.
well,
I
that's what
don't
I
know
mean.
why they.
But that's what's playing out. If you cut that deal with Washington now, if you let the United States and its the the companies and the outgrowths of these firms that are propped up by the dollar and they just grow like a cancer on the back of the
Oh yeah.
dollar. That's going to take the country down. It's going to take the country to a place where you're going to become eventually a vassal nation like Germany is. And that's the last thing I want to see happen. In Russia because I don't want the entire world turned into a giant U.S. strip mall. I'd like to go to Russia and experience Russian culture, the Russian language, and Russian foods. And I don't want to go there and see everything's Americanized, Hollywood and Google and Amazon and basically that is to some here in Western Europe that appears as success, but it's really slavery. Um,
Well, I don't
you
think Russia's
become
going to go down that way. And by the
no.
way, from what I've heard, these points, they're absolutely dead on arrival. Russia, Ukraine will leave the Donbass, which is DNR, LNR, and Russia will pay rent to Ukraine. Yeah, that's going to fly real far. Oh, and Russia loses all claims on Zaporozhye and Kherson. Anti-constitutional. No way in hell that would fly. And then the question of the good chunk of Kharkov, Sumy, and Dnipropetrovsk oblasts that are now in Russian hands. And then Ukraine reduces its military by two, so to 500,000. Granted, and then what? That's
uh,
neutrality? No, that's not gonna fly.
I forget the
Thankfully,
exact.
thank
I
God.
forget what was the exact number for the reduction in Ukrainian military force. I
In
think it was
half,
something.
in
I
half.
think it was less than that.
Well,
It was
there's
something like
different numbers floating around, but let's just say half. It's got about 1 million men now. Granted, million that they're counting is everybody from these press gangs to the police and everything else, but they're all counting them as military. So if they cut that in half, that leaves them with 500 million. 500,000 active duty. And Russia will never go for that.
I think the
Um,
deal. I mean, this latest thing that came out today was from. It seems like it's more of a thing between Witkoff and Kirill
Dimitrov, yeah.
Dmitriev. It doesn't seem like. I mean, apparently the president, Donald Trump, the president of the United States, he is like, aware of it. They say, but the Kremlin. I mean, Peskov today said that he has no. There's nothing's changed for them, and they're unaware of any. Um, I don't want to put words in his mouth. I had off today and I was moving around quickly doing other stuff, but I think that's what he said. Something to the effect of, this is not nothing's changed since Alaska. There's nothing new, and
Under the sky, yeah.
yeah. So basically, for him, it was. But I think they do. I think they realize that they have the. I hope they do. Seems like they do that. The Russian powers that be, they realize that they do have the upper hand. Um, they fought long and hard, and I think to cut a deal now would be.
It would be
I hope they
ridiculous,
see
in
it.
my opinion.
Yeah,
The
I hope
enemy's,
they see it through.
yeah, the enemy's on its knees, and what are you going to do? Okay, time out, or let's have peace
Yeah,
instead of
and I
delivering the
mean
final blow.
they've made such an effort towards really at the end of the day for me, and I think the facts bear it out that this crisis, this war, special military operation, whatever you want to call it, is really it's about Russia challenging the dollar-based world order.
Yes,
And
yes.
for a sovereign Russia, mm, the United States just can't have a sovereign Russia that
No,
wants
no,
to
you
assert
can't.
itself. And that's what they've tried to use Ukraine as a bulwark to contain the Russian Federation. And Russia has, reacted when it's made a great effort to kind of maintain its sovereignty and free
Hmm.
itself. or not free itself, but maintain its freedom because it
Yeah,
was never
yeah,
subjected like these other countries were. And I just hope that they, because it's a long, hard road, and I hope that they, and a lot of people have died, obviously, but it's worth from to it's worth a fight, I believe, in the end.
yes,
And that's what
yes,
Russian people are fighting for. They're fighting for really the freedom of not just the freedom and sovereignty of Russia, but the potential freedom and sovereignty of many, many peoples in the world. And
yeah,
this system has not only hurt the subjects, the vassals of Washington, it's also hurt the American middle class
yeah,
um, to a great extent.
and
And
lower class.
I hope we can return to a constitutional, money system in the United States at some point. And then at that point, we could become I think, a great partner to Russia. But that's going to take, that's a long, long, long way away. I don't think under the current paradigm, Washington can have um, no partners, no equals. Everybody is you're either, a vassal or a potential vassal or an enemy. And
Yep. I don't
but
see anything in Washington changing short of Washington disappearing, uh, or something of
right,
that sort.
right,
I mean, th these people are not going to leave power, and if
right.
anybody takes their place, the vast majority are just clones of the people that they replaced.
Yeah, it's all to prop up the system. Donald
Yeah.
Trump came in, as I mentioned there in that posting that posted on the 20th. He came
Hmm.
in with his, tough guy rhetoric. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. If he was really serious about changing things in the United States and fixing the problems we'd have, he'd be straightforward with the American people.
Yeah.
He'd explain to them, that the dollar system it's hurt our country. It's destroyed our manufacturing base. It's leveled our, middle class in the country. It's led to this unsustainable debt level and under fiat money system that even when it was first introduced, it looked like it would never end. But
Yeah. Yeah.
every system has its end, and we're reaching the end of that system now, and there's just no way that they can continue to prop it up. If you look at uh, the biggest expenditures in the United States now, and I mean, the four biggest budget line items you've got now, the interest on the debt has already surpassed
Everything
um,
else. Yeah.
the defense spending.
Okay. Yeah.
And then you got
One and a half
Medicare,
trillion.
Medicaid, yeah, and then Social Security and next. And we're not far away from surpassing that. And this is with rates only at where are we at now? The Fed just
Four and a
cut
half.
four and a quarter, 4.5, 425, 50 basis points or something.
Yeah.
And you know, so rates can never rise with this debt
Oh,
burden.
but they will.
Um, anything they're gonna have to cut rates. They're gonna have to cut rates and print a lot more money. And that's just gonna push us further into a kind of not I wouldn't say hyperinflation. I think that will eventually come, but very an inflationary, stagflationary kind of
Hmm.
period. And we're there now, and we're entering that phase. And if Russia can hold on long enough to see that come to pass, I think a lot of things can change potentially. That could be the start of some real change if they can. And when the Americans start to feel that pain at home, they really start to feel it. Things will change, and the system is really nearing its end. They can't extend and pretend anymore. It's just not possible. Like I mentioned with the interest rates, before.
Tom,
So
we are almost out of time. We've got about half a minute left. I want to thank you for joining. We need to continue talking because things
yeah,
are evolving very, very quickly. Everybody, thank you for joining. If you have any questions, leave comments. Leave it in the comments. Thomas checks them, reads them. So
thanks, Stas.
thank you, everybody. Till the
Take
next
care.
one. Cheers.
See you later.